the perception of all things we are involved in has changed dramatically year by year. And at the Kushi Summer Conference, my presentation was the age of macrobiotics begins now and will unfold over the next 2 to 3 years. And since I've been involved with this, and I said this at the conference, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, did I ever think it was possible for these things to take off in a large way and be accepted, I would have said no. Even though this is my life, I truly thought, I will not see this in my lifetime. However, in the last 4 or 5 years, something started to change. And 3 things changed. Number one, it's commonly accepted that there's a direct connection between diet and health. There is not agreement on what the ideal diet is yet. That will come next. But there is agreement that what we eat is crucial for our health. That's across the board. Number two, it's becoming more and more widely accepted that food and agriculture are the most important things for the environment and climate, including global warming. And recent research has shown that raising beef is 51% of global warming. So that it's in everyone's reach to eat less meat or none, especially beef, in order to help the environment and stem global warming. These things are becoming more widely accepted. Third, that animals have rights too. Animals have rights too. So the idea of caring for and protecting animals, which really is showing our consciousness is changing. Our consciousness is changing of realizing that foods far reach to the environment, and that we need to preserve all of life, ourselves, the planet, animals, etc. That's showing a consciousness shift that is, not only within macrobiotics, which is within society. And together with that, our association, our connection with Colin Campbell is becoming stronger and stronger. And he's really leading the way for whole food, plant-based diets. And other MDs, Neil Bernard, McDougall, Nesselstein, really are following him and his research. Kind of opened the doors to give those other doctors, a voice. And 5 years or 7 years ago, when I went to meet with Neil Bernard to ask him if he'd endorse the Great Life Diet, he said, no. You recommend fish, so I don't want anything to do with it. And our connection is built over the years. And recently, when he came to Philadelphia to speak, the Ethical Society, I went to hear him speak, and he introduced me and said, this person knows more about food than any other person I know. I said, thank you, that's a nice compliment. And he deferred a lot of the questions to me, so it opened the door. This time, when Susan and I were doing our new book, The Complete Macrobiotic Diet, I sent him the cover, and I didn't even send him any other endorsements. I asked him, would you consider endorsing this now? A half hour later, I got an incredible endorsement saying that this is a life-changing book, right? Neil Bernard. So the point is, Colin Campbell and Neil Bernard realized the real importance, the value of macrobiotics. Going back a little bit, several months ago, Susan and I went to meet with Colin Campbell and his wife and main assistant to propose an idea. And that idea was that we have a very valuable collaboration, and that we each have something valuable to each other. I told Colin Campbell many times before, we have the 2 most important books there are. You have the science, and I have the implementation. And we need both. And Susan and I talked, and we went with the idea that if we can merge history and science together. Then we could have something that's truly unique, because science alone can't really create the ideal way of eating. However, the uniqueness of macrobiotics is that we have 10,000 years of history and the ability to understand and interpret how food was used in all the world's large, long-standing civilizations. Together with that, George Ohsawa's idea of local and indigenous, which came from the Japanese concept of Shindo Fuji, that our body and the environment are not separate. So my interpretation, we are one with nature and the environment. Based on that thinking comes the idea of indigenous, which is one of the keys to the future. When Fukuoka came, one straw revolution, when he came, he walked around and every plant he saw, this is not indigenous. He couldn't find anything that was indigenous, right? Here. Everything is from someplace else. So these ideas are spreading and becoming accepted. That grew out of macrobiotics and George Ohsawa's teachings, and now are becoming accepted in a much wider way. So even though people thought macrobiotics, it had its heyday and macrobiotics has passed, it's actually, macrobiotics has become more important and timely than ever, because we have certain things that are invaluable to unify all these other wonderful things that are in society. So now, because macrobiotics during this period is in the Southeast, reputation, international partnerships, communications. So I've been trying as much as possible to create and cement these valuable things. Plus, last year in Europe, we had the most productive meeting that, has been around for many, many years. We used to have productive meetings years ago, but then they turned it into a free-for-all. Everybody trying to argue with someone else, so I dropped out. I said, I don't have the time or money to go to Europe to go and argue whether the unifying principle should be part of macrobiotics or not. It's like, there's no macrobiotics without the unifying principle. Why do I want to talk about that? So, but last year was entirely different feeling and spirit. So this year, Susan and I are going to go to be part of the meeting, which I think then will spread to here. Again, so my point is, macrobiotics is having a viable rebirth because we have very important, crucial input into things that are developing now. And George Ohsawa's insights were like beyond compare. Going from 0 to 1 is amazingly difficult. From 1 to 100 is nothing. But 0 to 1 is everything. And that's what George Ohsawa did. He took something, traditional understanding that was around for thousands of years, and gathered and synthesized it, reinterpreted it, to try to unify East and West and move us into a new age. That's essentially what George Ohsawa did, and created models for life. Then his students, Michio and Aveline, Herman and Cornelia, Shizuko, and then ones, in Europe and elsewhere, tried to take that teaching and reinterpret and spread it. However, what he discovered was so invaluable to move us forward towards, a new age. So we really have from now until 2017 to plant seeds. We don't have to accomplish. Planting a seed means you take the first step. Right?
Did George Ohsawa use 9P?
I have no idea. Probably not. No, he just uses intuition and brilliant insight. But at any rate, what's important is you take the first step, right? So before you get married and have a baby, you take the first step. You say, would you like to go out, or whatever you do, right? So it begins from your idea, but it doesn't begin from your idea. It begins when you take your first step. So planting seeds means taking the step. It doesn't have to be accomplished. So we're halfway through 2014. We have 2015. 2015, where do we move to? Then we move, 2015 is next year. As I said, pivotal, because not only is it 3-year, but it's a snake. So in the 9-year cycle, Macrobox is in the southeast. In the 1-year cycle, Macrobox is in the southeast. Then, no, it's not, actually it's sheep, it's not a snake, but so, it doesn't have the animal. But at any rate, that was a mistake, it's sheep. But it's in the southeast, it's a very pivotal year.
So it's a good time to plant seeds. I thought you said that wasn't a good time.
Oh no, that's the best time out of 9 years is the southeast. One of the things I really wish I had time to do, it's one of the things that one of the last projects Takashi Yoshikawa did, is to publish a book on timing through research on many famous people and enterprises when they started and how they went according to timing. And it's one of the things that really has meaning to me. And you know, when I have a minute here or there and I see anything, a person or anything that's successful, again, the patterns are amazing. But it's a big project. At any rate, this is the time. So 2014 and 2015. 2016 is not good because we're moving in the center. 2017 is the last year for planting seeds. If the proper seeds are planted by 2017, then in the next 9 years, they can strengthen and unify. Then again, we move into preservation. There, they can be reorganized to be developed and presented for society. Right? So that would unfold from 2035, right? That means of all of recorded history for the last 10, 12,000 years, this is the most exciting, crucial time. So if you're thinking about acting or doing something, now is the time, right? In any way. It doesn't matter how big or small, it just matters that you act. Take the first step. You have the idea, then you take the step. And if you can make any collaborations, next year is the time. It's the most valuable time for collaborations. Macrobox is not against sickness, it's for health. So we don't try to create health by destroying sickness. We try to create health by increasing health. That means you don't have to worry about Monsanto. You don't have to worry about anything that's going on now. What we do need to worry about, not worry, but put our efforts in promoting health. Right? Healthy food, healthy lifestyle practices, healthy agriculture, right? Healthy institutions, because you can't fight what's going on. It's way, way too powerful. It's like trying to change industry, can't be done. There are too many interests powerful, you know, forget it, it's impossible. But what can be done is what's happening is you can't stop a groundswell. I mean, a tidal wave begins with a tremor. An exponential progression is unstoppable. So we're just breaking the soil now with all these things. That's why they're all appearing. But once they appear, then they'll have a very powerful life. So that's why I say the most important thing now is make connections, collaborations of everyone is moving towards health. And even though there's not agreement on the most healthy way to eat and live, there is agreement about food and health. The agreement on what the best way is will come naturally in time. Okay. So we don't have to worry about those details. So you don't have to worry about paleo, you don't have to worry about, you know, Coca-Cola or Monsanto or anything like that. Yeah.
So I really appreciate that perspective. So what you're saying is, instead of us fighting what is going wrong, we just ignore it.
Right.
And if we don't address it, sooner or later, we're gonna affect other people by not addressing it.
Right.
If you don't buy it, it's eventually gonna go away. It
Right.
might take a long time, but okay, thanks.
Right,
Got it.
yes.
Thank you very
If you
much.
don't buy it, it can't exist, right?
That's right. Mhm.
So you spend your money on good, healthy, organic, naturally processed, local, indigenous foods.
Yeah,
And forget the other, right?
yeah, I appreciate to stop the fighting the GMOs.
Yeah, because if you're worried about being sick, it's worse. It doesn't help it. People that recovered, and I've talked, they were confident deep inside they could recover their health, and they put their entire intention towards getting healthy again. And people who do that then recover their health. So the same way to change society, to change the world, the environment, how do we do that? By putting our full efforts and intention on just doing the right things for diet, for lifestyle practices, for farming practices, for food processing, for each thing. Then those things, next is connections, collaborations. So, and those connections, collaborations, they can happen most in the next 9 years. Right? Unify or destroy. So what's in place during that time, if we do the right things and don't rush it, we'll unify and become strong. Then preserve, harvest, etc. Right? Then we can set a new direction. One thing I learned, Michio's long-term predictions have been 100% accurate from the beginning. And one of the things he said to me a number of times, he said, I was born too soon. I will not see the fruits of my efforts, but you will. Right? And that was a long time ago, and I thought, maybe you will see, but he won't, right? There's not enough time, unless he lives another 20 years, but, which is, of course, possible. But now is the time when all that is unfolding, right?